The European continent is very fragmented due to the way it expanded. Large plots of land are extremely hard to find, but most of the lands in Europe are used for agriculture purposes, and farmers are selling massively more than ever and freeing 0.1% of the continent territory every year. This abandonment is due to the decrease of efficiency of the traditional farming practices that have some of the worst negative impacts on the environment. Even small towns throughout Europe like this one, a place with an infrastructure, homes, and a giant power plant, a village that seems like a great place to start a career, are being abandoned. So which projects need desperately land in Europe? Rewilding. What is rewilding? Rewilding is large conservation projects using passive management as a way of restoring landscape and ecosystems. But for that, you need land. Any land. You restore it to its natural state by creating a certain topography, water streams, vegetation, and finally, you introduce animals to their new home. Then, no more human management. So it's all about land, but how big should it be? Most of the scientists agree that for a rewilding project to be extremely successful, you would need a lot of territory. Paris is around 100 square kilometers, Malta 316, Luxembourg 2,586. But for a rewilding project to actually succeed, you would need 5,000 square kilometers. Rewilding projects throughout the world were able to rebalance landscapes and ecosystems thanks to keystone species. Rewilding also cuts by 80% the cost of human-managed conservation projects in Europe that cost billions every year. All European countries are seeing their agricultural lands being abandoned rapidly, and none of them are planning to reuse these fields for new projects, which leaves us with around 200,000 square kilometers of free land in 2040, which is equal not to one, but more than 40 potential plots that could be rewilded. Analyzing Europe land use and its population density helps us understand all the potential plots, considering only areas with the less amounts of settlements and their proximity to vast areas of forest and grassland. But these plots, like this one in the French Cantal department, are still full of many complex elements that need to be addressed. Highways, routes, settlements, and croplands distributed within the territory, but also a great amount of forest, water points, and grassland. Complex and confusing urban plans like these are stopping massive rewilding projects from happening. Should we start rearranging our territories? By first identifying the settlements that are losing populations rapidly and croplands which productions are very low, we can start thinking about a more compact rearrangement that can facilitate the introduction of rewilding projects. But more than just a depopulated land, by looking at a rewilded plot through data layers such as 4G coverage, presidential voter turnout, or even a property value heat map, this apolitical unique territory starts holding an amazing opportunity to rethink and experiment sustainable land management and zoning practices, supporting future rewilding projects while protecting animals and humans at the same time. Framing with the different actors present in the project how much land they will be allocated for settlements, croplands, infrastructure, experimental projects, and the rewilded area is essential. While most of the land will be purely rewilded, almost 80% of it, 10% of the territory will be housing experimental projects. The Cantal department is still part of a bigger network of interconnected infrastructure, roads, and railways. If we can determine the settlements that concentrate the most important populations and therefore the hardest to eradicate within the territory, and the ones that surround it, we can decide which part of the infrastructure to abandon and which one to keep. Here we can decide that the two main highways we would potentially preserve would connect Aurillac and Mauriac to Tulle, Saint-Flour, and Saint-Chély. Those cities would also house the small villages that we will abandon entirely within my 5,000 square kilometer area. Adding new layers of information such as Natura 2000 territories helps us assign the adequate programs for villages according to their location and determine the fate of the ever-changing border of the territory at different locations, either becoming a hotspot for new development or where infrastructure will be left to collapse. Classifying the typologies of the abandoned villages within the project, now ruins, we can find solutions to architecturally enhance them to answer specific needs for a rewilded animal species. An abandoned French house would be consolidated by incorporating a dovecote, thanks to its courtyard, in a region where birds are endangered. This hybrid structure starts acting as an independent haven and a transition point for migrating birds and part of a bigger network. Other key regions would benefit from deploying research grids to survey animals and certain parts of the project. The right typology would be protected to house the scientist base involved in this endeavor, and connecting it with a set of in-ground and underground infrastructure. As traditional farming practices are not viable, it will have to evolve to exist within the project. Pivotal farming needs to be re-explored. Here, a small parcel run by independent farmers could turn into a rotational cropland system, thus allowing the terrain to regenerate and animals to occupy a new area when it is done being grazed by livestock. Inserting dovecotes could be one of the components regulating the size and shape of the croplands. Dovecotes that would be incorporated into the farms and start acting not only as a habitat for the migrating birds, but also as a way of fertilizing the area around it, making farming wild-friendly. Following the cadastral boundaries of the farms, croplands owned by corporations could free 65% of the area, when used by independent farmers, thanks to their efficient production technologies and compact storage systems. Existing human settlements that were not relocated and the new experimental projects will have to be protected. Thanks to the deployment of survey grades of wilderness in other parts of the project, animal experts agree that a methodical urban planning and distribution of croplands around a human settlement can protect both parties and limit greatly their interaction. By analyzing migration patterns of animals and the paths they take around their habitat, according to the species introduced within a specific rewilded area, will help determine the density and layering of the crops. These new zoning practices will also help assign protected plots for future human projects with high potential. The initiative to experiment new wide range of operations will be encouraged to be taken by both civilians and corporations with bigger resources to understand better the challenges of the rewilded territory while existing within the allocated sector. The project becomes a mosaic of interconnected experimental techniques and the practices of the tomorrow. So when rewilding projects become bigger than our cities, should we consider giving them sovereignty? Can they be part of the discussion? Thank you very much.